Jonas Templar had never been to a place like this before. His boots clicked against the polished floors of the grand marketplace as he walked, the hum of alien voices swirling around him. This station was a floating city, a crossroads of the galaxy where different species gathered to trade and barter. It was a place where anything could be bought, if you had the right price. Humans had only recently made their mark in the galaxy. Their technology was still catching up with the older civilizations, but their reputation for ingenuity had quickly spread across the stars. Jonas wasn't just another tourist. He was here on business. He had come to secure an artifact that, if the rumors were true, could change the balance of power across the galaxy. A rare, ancient relic lost for centuries, said to hold secrets about the universe itself. The marketplace was as bustling as a beehive, with hundreds of stalls and merchants selling all kinds of strange items. Jonas had to navigate his way through the crowds of Varalu traders, towering Qatari with 3 eyes, and the occasional hovering Tarian who floated above the ground on magnetic boots. Each species brought something unique to the table, and there were no limits to what could be bought and sold. Jonas was careful with his steps. He had a reputation for being shrewd with negotiations, and he wasn't about to let his guard down here in the heart of alien territory. As he turned the corner, he saw her. She stood by one of the more exclusive stalls, her sharp eyes scanning the crowd with an air of quiet authority. The merchant she was speaking to seemed to be getting agitated, but she remained calm, her voice smooth and measured. She was beautiful, in a way that was difficult to describe, with dark skin that shimmered under the station's artificial lights and hair that seemed to ripple like liquid silver. Jonas had heard of her. Everyone had. Her name was Lyris, and she wasn't just a trader or a diplomat. She was a negotiator, a master at getting people what they wanted, even if it meant bending the rules. No one knew her full history, but her reputation spoke volumes. She had brokered peace treaties, stopped wars, and helped to forge powerful alliances. Some even whispered that she could solve problems that no one else could. The merchant finally stormed off, muttering under his breath, and Lyris turned her attention to Jonas. She studied him for a moment, sizing him up as he approached. "You must be Jonas Templar," she said, her voice low and clear. There was no question in her tone. She knew who he was before he had even opened his mouth. Jonas nodded, taken slightly aback by her directness. "I am. I've heard a lot about you, Lyris. You're famous in certain circles." She smiled slightly, though there was no warmth in it. "I prefer to keep my reputation quiet. Too many people talk about things they don't understand." Jonas raised an eyebrow. "I'm not here to discuss reputations. I'm looking for something. An artifact. Something. Valuable." Lyris tilted her head. "I see. And what makes you think I can help you find it?" Jonas didn't hesitate. "Because you're the best at finding things no one else can." Her expression didn't change, but Jonas saw the flicker of interest in her eyes. She had dealt with humans before. She knew their reputation for being resourceful and determined. But what truly intrigued her was the way Jonas spoke. He wasn't here to beg or barter. He was here to make a deal, and that was a game she could play. "I might be able to help you," she said, her tone thoughtful, "but it's going to cost you." Jonas nodded. "I expected as much." Lyris paused, her fingers tapping against the edge of a nearby table. "You're not from around here, are you? This isn't just a simple trade. This market holds power, and not everyone is willing to play by the same rules. What you're asking for isn't something anyone just gives away." Jonas didn't flinch. "I've dealt with difficult people before." Lyris studied him again, this time more closely. "There's more to this than just a transaction. I'm offering something more than information, Jonas. Something that could change the course of your life. But you need to understand, once you accept, there's no going back." Jonas raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." She stepped closer, her presence commanding. "I am offering you more than just an alliance. You want the artifact, but you also want something else, something that you're not saying. I can help you get it, but in return you will owe me." Jonas didn't flinch, but the weight of her words settled on his shoulders. "What's the catch?" Lyris's eyes gleamed with a sharp, almost predatory light. "The catch is simple. You buy me for one night. You'll have my services, no questions asked. In exchange, I'll help you get what you want. But once you agree, you'll be bound to me in ways you can't yet understand." Jonas's mind raced. He had heard rumors of deals like this, Powerful people offering their services for a price that often involved more than just credits. It was dangerous territory, but he was desperate. He needed that artifact, and he needed it now. "What happens after the night is over?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Lyrus's smile widened, but there was something cold in it. "Once the night is over, the deal is finished. But you'll owe me, and when I call in that favor, you will come. No questions. No hesitation. You will do as I say." Jonas could feel the tension in the air, thick and charged. This was more than just a simple negotiation. This was a test. She was testing him, seeing if he had the nerve to go through with it. He took a deep breath, considering his options. He had no choice. The artifact was too important. His mission was too urgent. If he didn't act now, he might never get another chance. "I agree," he said, his voice firm. Lyrus's smile deepened, though it remained cold. "Good, we'll meet tonight then. You'll find me at the restaurant in Sector 12. I'll be waiting." Jonas nodded, feeling a mix of relief and unease settle over him. He had made the deal, but now he had no idea what he was walking into. Lyrus was a woman of many layers, and Jonas was about to peel back the first one. But what lay beneath, he wasn't sure. As he turned to leave, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to change in ways he couldn't even imagine. He wasn't just chasing an artifact anymore. He was chasing something far more dangerous and far more personal. Something that could alter the future of the galaxy. But first, he would have to survive the night. Jonas Templar didn't sleep much that night. He couldn't. His mind kept racing, replaying the events of the day. The deal with Lyrus had been unlike anything he'd ever experienced. The words she spoke, cold, calm, and calculated, kept echoing in his head. "Buy me for one night, and you will have my services." It wasn't just the artifact he was after anymore. It was something deeper. Something about Lyrus had sparked his curiosity, a part of him wanting to understand who she truly was. But as the hours passed, that curiosity was overshadowed by a growing sense of unease. Jonas had dealt with difficult situations before, but nothing like this. In the past, he had faced rival traders, pirates, and even threats from other species. But this felt different. Lyrus wasn't just another player in the game. She was a force of her own. By the time the evening arrived, Jonas found himself standing in front of a sleek, polished building in Sector 12. It was the kind of place where only the wealthiest and most influential people gathered. The lights were dim, casting long shadows along the walls. The scent of exotic food filled the air as he stepped inside, his eyes scanning the room for any sign of Lyrus. The restaurant was quiet, almost too quiet. There were a few patrons scattered around, but no one seemed to pay him any attention. His heart was racing in his chest as he walked deeper into the room. And then he saw her. Lyrus was sitting at a table by the window, looking out at the stars. Her posture was perfect, her demeanor calm. She didn't look up when he approached, but Jonas could feel her eyes on him as he drew closer. The soft clink of cutlery and hushed voices around him seemed to fade away as he reached her table. "Jonas," Lyrus said, her voice smooth as ever, without even a hint of surprise. "You're on time. I wasn't sure if you would show up." Jonas took a seat across from her, trying to remain composed. "You didn't exactly give me a choice." Lyrus chuckled softly, her lips curling into a small, knowing smile. "You always have a choice, Jonas. You just decided to accept the price." Jonas didn't respond immediately. Instead, he looked out the window, staring into the vast expanse of space. There was something about the endless void outside that made him feel small, insignificant even. But at the same time, it reminded him why he was here. There were so many unknowns in the galaxy, and he was standing on the edge of something big. "I'm here," he said finally, breaking the silence. "Now what?" Lyrus picked up a glass of something that shimmered in the low light, swirling it slowly as she regarded him. "Now we talk. You wanted something from me, and I've agreed to help you get it. But there are rules to this. You're not just buying my services for the night. You're stepping into something much bigger." Jonas felt a chill run down his spine. He had expected a simple exchange, but Lyrus's words made it clear that he was in over his head. He was no longer just a businessman looking for a rare artifact. He was a pawn in a much larger game. But he didn't have the luxury of turning back now. He leaned forward slightly, his voice low. "What exactly do you mean? What's really going on here?" Lyrus set her glass down carefully, her eyes meeting his with an intensity that made Jonas's pulse quicken. The artifact you seek is powerful. You probably don't even know half of what it can do. But there are others, other factions, groups, who would do anything to get their hands on it. They're not going to just hand it over, and they're not going to let you walk away easily. Jonas absorbed her words, his mind racing. He had known there would be competition, but this felt different. It wasn't just a matter of outbidding someone or outsmarting a rival. There was danger here, real danger, and he had no idea just how deep it went. Lyris continued, her voice barely above a whisper. The artifact has the power to change the balance of the galaxy. There are beings out there who will stop at nothing to control it. They'll use whatever means necessary to keep it out of the wrong hands. And believe me, Jonas, there are many wrong hands. He glanced at her, trying to understand what she wasn't saying. And you're involved in all this? She didn't answer immediately, her gaze flickering to the stars once again. I didn't choose this life. It chose me. Her voice was laced with something Jonas couldn't quite place. Regret, perhaps, or resignation. But I've learned to play the game. I'm good at it. Jonas took a deep breath, trying to keep his thoughts clear. There was no turning back. If he wanted the artifact, and if he wanted to stay alive, he had no choice but to trust her. For now, all right, he said, his voice firm. Tell me what I need to do. Lyris's smile returned, though it was still cold, calculating. It's simple. You'll help me retrieve the artifact, and I'll help you protect it. But we're not alone in this. There are people, dangerous people, who want it. And they'll do whatever it takes to stop us. Jonas nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. So we're in this together. For now, she said. But remember, Jonas, when this is over, the favor I'm owed will be called in. And when I ask, you'll do as I say. No questions. No hesitation. Jonas felt a knot tighten in his stomach, but he kept his expression neutral. Understood. They spent the next hour discussing the details of their plan, though much of it went over Jonas's head. He wasn't a diplomat or a master strategist, but he could see the depth of Lyris's knowledge. She had been in the game for a long time, and it showed in the way she spoke, in the way she planned each move with precision. As the evening wore on, Jonas felt more and more like a pawn in a game he didn't fully understand. He had come here for an artifact, something he thought would change everything. But now he realized it wasn't just about the artifact anymore. It was about survival. The galaxy was full of dangers he hadn't even begun to imagine. Finally, as the night began to wind down, Lyris stood up, her movements graceful and fluid. We'll leave tomorrow, she said. Get some rest, Jonas. Tomorrow we begin. Jonas rose to his feet as well, feeling the weight of what he had just agreed to. Tomorrow, he repeated, though he wasn't sure what would come next, but deep down he knew. He had crossed a line. He was no longer just chasing a piece of history. He was diving headfirst into a web of political intrigue, power struggles, and dangerous alliances, and he had no idea what the consequences would be. As Jonas left the restaurant, the night air cool against his skin, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was a vast, unpredictable place, and now he was a part of it, caught in the currents of something much bigger than himself, and he wasn't sure if he would ever escape. The next day, the air on the space station felt different. Jonas Templar could sense it the moment he stepped out of his quarters. There was a tension in the air, thick and palpable. He had expected danger. After all, he had come here for a rare artifact, one that was said to have the power to change the galaxy. What he hadn't expected, however, was how quickly the situation had escalated. Lyris had been right. They were not alone in this pursuit. As they prepared to leave the station, Jonas noticed something strange. The normally bustling corridors were quieter than usual. There were fewer traders, fewer tourists. The station's lights flickered for just a moment as though something was off. Lyris had called it a subtle warning. Her words echoed in his mind as they made their way to the docking bay. The artifact they were after wasn't just valuable, it was a key to something much larger, and there were people who would do anything to stop them from getting it. Jonas tried to push the nagging feeling of unease aside. He had dealt with danger before, but this felt different. It wasn't just about the artifact anymore. It was about survival. It was about power, and who would hold it in the end. As they boarded the ship, Jonas couldn't help but notice how calm Lyris seemed. There was no sign of fear in her eyes. just the same cold, calculating focus he had seen the night before. She moved with purpose, as though she already knew what was coming. He followed her to the cockpit, where she began inputting coordinates into the navigation system. "I'm glad you're not nervous," Jonas said, trying to break the silence. His hands were clenched into fists, a mixture of excitement and anxiety running through his veins. Lyris didn't look up from her work. "Nervous? This is just another mission. We've done worse." Jonas raised an eyebrow. "Worse than this?" Lyris paused for a moment, her fingers hovering over the controls. She didn't answer right away, as though carefully considering how much to reveal. Finally she spoke, her voice as steady as ever. "You don't know the half of it. But that's the point, isn't it? You didn't sign up for this knowing exactly what was at stake. You're here because you need something. You need this artifact, and I'm here to make sure you get it." Jonas couldn't help but feel a little frustrated. She was always so composed, always one step ahead. He was starting to wonder if he was just another piece on her chessboard. "Fine," he said, sitting down in the seat next to her. "But what's the real story here? What exactly is this artifact? And why is it so important to everyone?" Lyris sighed, but this time there was a hint of something softer in her eyes. Perhaps regret. The artifact is an ancient relic from the Zalmar civilization, a race that existed long before any of the current galactic powers. Their technology was far beyond anything we have today, and they left behind these relics scattered across the galaxy. They were hidden, kept safe by a network of vaults that no one has been able to break into. She turned to face him, her expression serious. "But the truth is, Jonas, the artifact doesn't just hold knowledge. It holds the key to controlling the minds of entire species. The Zalmar were able to manipulate thought, shape emotions, and bend entire civilizations to their will. This artifact is the last piece we need to understand their technology." Jonas stared at her in disbelief. "You're telling me this artifact can control minds?" Lyris nodded. "Exactly. And there are factions out there who will do anything to get their hands on it. If they succeed, they could rewrite the future of the galaxy. If they succeed, they could make humanity, and every other species, nothing more than pawns in their game." The weight of her words sank in, and Jonas's thoughts raced. He had been so focused on getting the artifact, he hadn't stopped to think about the consequences. What if Lyris was right? What if they were about to unleash something far more dangerous than they could control? Before he could respond, the ship's alert system beeped. A warning message flashed across the console. "Problem?" Jonas asked, his heart racing. Lyris didn't answer right away. She was already scanning the system, her fingers flying over the controls. After a few tense moments, she cursed under her breath. "They've found us." Jonas's stomach tightened. "Who?" "The same people we're trying to beat. They've got a fleet on the way, and they're closing in fast." Jonas stood up, feeling the panic rise in his chest. "What do we do?" Lyris's voice was cold and calm, the way it always was when things got serious. "We run. Now." She pushed the engines to their limit, and the ship jolted forward, the stars outside stretching into streaks of light as they entered hyperspace. But Jonas knew that running wouldn't be enough. They were being hunted, and sooner or later the hunter would catch up. Hours passed in tense silence. Jonas sat in the cockpit watching Lyris's every move. She was calculating, precise, never rushing, never flustered. He couldn't understand how she could stay so calm. He was beginning to feel the weight of the situation pressing in on him. He had trusted her, followed her into the unknown without asking enough questions. But now, with every passing minute, he felt more like a pawn in her game. "How much longer until we reach the vault?" he asked, breaking the silence. Lyris glanced at him, her eyes sharp. "A few hours. We need to be ready for what's coming." Jonas nodded, even though he wasn't sure what that meant. He had seen Lyris deal with threats before, but this time, they weren't just up against rival traitors or criminals. They were facing a force with the power to reshape the galaxy itself. And Jonas wasn't sure if they would be able to stop it. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Lyris spoke again. "We're close. Get ready." Jonas stood, feeling the tension in his body tighten even further. They had made it this far, but he knew the real danger was just beginning. The vault they were headed to was one of the last safe places where the artifact could be hidden, but it was also surrounded by layers of security, traps, defenses, and guardians left behind by the ancient Zalmar. When they arrived, Jonas was stunned by the sight of it. The vault wasn't just a building or a room. It was a massive structure hidden beneath the surface of a barren planet. As their ship descended toward the entrance, Jonas could see the eerie glow of the vault's outer walls, and a strange, almost unnatural silence surrounded it. "This is it," Lyra said, her voice steady. "The artifact is inside, but getting to it won't be easy. We'll need to move fast and be prepared for anything." Jonas nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. He had come all this way for the artifact, but now as they approached the vault he realized that he was no longer sure what was worth fighting for. Was it just the power to control minds, or was it the freedom to choose their own path? He had no answers yet, but he knew one thing for sure. There was no turning back now. They had crossed the line, and now they had to face the consequences. The vault loomed ahead, a colossal structure carved into the rocky surface of a barren planet. Jonas Templar stood at the edge of the ship's ramp, staring at the entrance. It was a fortress, a place where ancient power was hidden and the stakes had never felt higher. The artifact they sought wasn't just a relic. It was a key, a tool that could shape the fate of entire civilizations. If they succeeded, they would unlock unimaginable power. If they failed, they would be crushed by forces much larger than themselves. Jonas felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him, but he wasn't backing down. He had come too far. He turned to Lyris, who was already preparing her equipment, her expression unreadable. She had been calm, even collected throughout their journey, but Jonas could sense the tension in her. Even she was nervous about what lay ahead. "We're here," Lyris said, her voice steady but with an edge to it. "Time to move." Jonas nodded, and they made their way toward the vault's entrance. The ground beneath their boots was rough, the air thin. The planet was lifeless, but there was something eerie about the silence. The vault had stood here for centuries, untouched by time, and now they were about to enter. There was no turning back. As they approached the entrance, the massive doors slowly began to open. A low hum filled the air as they slid apart, revealing the dark, ancient halls inside. The atmosphere was heavy, almost oppressive, and Jonas could feel his pulse quickening. There were no guards, no alarms. It was as if the vault had been waiting for them. "We're not alone," Lyris whispered, her voice low and urgent. Jonas tensed. "What do you mean?" Lyris didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out a small device. She activated it, and a holographic map of the vault appeared in the air between them. The map showed a maze of corridors and chambers, each labeled with ancient symbols Jonas couldn't read. "The artifact is at the center," Lyris said, tracing a path on the map with her finger. "But the closer we get, the more dangerous it will be. The Zalmar designed this place to protect their secrets. We're going to face challenges, security systems, traps, and possibly more." Jonas didn't need to be told twice. He could feel the weight of the danger, but there was no turning back now. They had come this far, and failure wasn't an option. They moved forward cautiously, stepping through the darkened hallways. The walls were covered in ancient carvings, strange symbols and pictures that told stories of the Zalmar's long-lost civilization. Jonas studied them for a moment, but there was no time to decipher their meaning. They had a job to do. As they turned a corner, a soft click echoed through the air. Jonas froze, his heart pounding in his chest. Lyris's eyes widened, and she grabbed his arm, pulling him back into the shadows just as a series of lights flickered on above them. "Trap," she muttered. "Stay low." Jonas crouched down beside her, his breath shallow as he tried to stay out of sight. He had no idea what kind of trap they had triggered, but he trusted Lyris. She had been through this before. Seconds later, a panel in the wall slid open, and a swarm of small metallic drones emerged. They hovered in the air, scanning the surroundings with glowing red eyes. Jonas held his breath, watching them as they moved past, unaware of their presence. Lyris motioned for him to follow, and they quickly moved deeper into the vault. But the drones weren't the only danger. As they ventured further, they encountered more traps. Laser grids, pressure plates, and ancient energy fields that sparked to life as they approached. It was clear the Zalmar had anticipated every possible threat, and they had designed this place to be nearly impossible to navigate. But Lyris was skilled. She led Jonas through each obstacle with ease, using her knowledge of ancient technology to disable or bypass the traps. Each time they avoided a close call, Jonas couldn't help but feel more impressed by her abilities. She was everything he wasn't: cool, calculating, and always one step ahead. After what felt like hours of navigating through the maze-like corridors, They finally arrived at a large chamber. At the center of the room stood a pedestal, glowing with an eerie blue light. Jonas could feel the power emanating from it like a pulse in the air. "This is it," Lyris said, her voice tense. "The artifact is inside that pedestal." Jonas stepped forward, his hand shaking slightly as he reached for the pedestal. But as he did, the room suddenly began to tremble, and the walls around them began to shift. The ground cracked open, revealing a hidden chamber below. "What the hell?" Jonas exclaimed, stumbling back. Lyris's eyes narrowed. "It's a security mechanism. The Zalmar never wanted anyone to reach the artifact." The chamber below began to fill with a dark mist, and Jonas's heart skipped a beat. In the shadows, something moved. "It's not just a trap," Lyris whispered. "They've been waiting for us." Out of the mist, a figure emerged. Tall, cloaked in dark robes, its face hidden beneath a hood. It moved with a slow, deliberate pace, its eyes glowing red beneath the hood. "I knew someone would come for the artifact," the figure said, its voice echoing in the chamber. "But I didn't expect it to be you." Lyris stepped forward, her hand on the weapon at her side. "I'm not here to negotiate," she said, her voice cold. "We're taking it." The figure laughed softly, the sound chilling. "You don't understand. This artifact isn't meant for anyone to control. It will break you, just like it broke us." Jonas could feel the tension in the air, the power of the artifact calling to him. He didn't fully understand what was happening, but he could feel its weight, its presence tugging at him. "I'll stop you," the figure said, its voice growing louder. "I've been guarding this vault for centuries. No one will take it." Lyris's eyes flashed, and she pulled out a small device from her belt. She activated it, and a pulse of energy shot across the room, hitting the figure directly. The figure stumbled back, but it wasn't enough to stop it. Jonas watched in awe as Lyris continued to fire, her precision perfect. But the figure seemed impervious to her attacks. It was clear that they were outmatched. In a split second, Jonas made a decision. He grabbed the artifact from the pedestal, its energy surging through his hands, and a wave of power coursed through him. He felt different, stronger, sharper, like he could see through everything. It was overwhelming, but he couldn't let go. The figure's eyes widened. "No, you don't understand the power you've just unleashed." Jonas held firm, his grip tightening on the artifact. For the first time, he felt like he had control over his fate, over his future. He wasn't a pawn anymore. "I understand more than you think," Jonas said, his voice steady. "This is what I came for." With a final surge of energy, Jonas pushed the figure back, the artifact glowing brighter than ever. The figure collapsed, its form disintegrating in a burst of light. As the room fell silent, Lyris approached him, her expression unreadable. She looked at him, then at the artifact in his hands. "You're different," she said softly. "This power, it's not meant for one person. It's dangerous." Jonas glanced down at the artifact, the weight of what he had just done sinking in. "Maybe," he said, his voice calm. "But it's mine now, and I won't let anyone control me again." Lyris nodded, a hint of respect in her eyes. "I never expected you to be the one to wield it. But it seems the galaxy has underestimated humans once again." Jonas smiled, the tension finally lifting. He had come for the artifact, but what he had found was something far greater, the strength to define his own destiny. The galaxy had never seen anything like him.